So today we're going to talk about relationships, one of my favorite topics. Everyone who knows me knows that I used to spend hours, days, weeks, months sitting around in bars or cafes or by a river and talking about love. My own love affairs, everybody else's love affairs, not necessarily people who were present, but my friends. I dissected so many relationships in my younger years, and I was always obsessed with the phenomenon of love. You know, it's like you get off work, you catch a bus, you miss your stop, you get off at the next stop, and then suddenly there's this stranger there, and that stranger also missed the bus, and then the rain falls, of course. And the story begins like, why does it happen? And then a few months later, the big drama, the first big drama takes place. Suddenly one of them is like, oh, this is a relationship, and the other one's like, I don't want a relationship, or someone's pregnant, or someone wants to be pregnant, or somebody wants to move in, or doesn't like spaghetti, or hates Finland, and the whole thing begins. 5-6 years later, maybe they figured it out, maybe not. If not, they're probably not friends yet, but maybe they will be. If they figured it out, they're probably gonna have children, or they have to explain to everyone why they don't want to have children, and then from then on it's a real race until one of them is dead, because that's what it's about. Everybody is looking for somebody to die with, and that's really intriguing to me, because that's not the point of relationships. And even when I was younger, sitting around in cafes for hours and days and nights and months and years, I was always like, why is all that people want my age, and I was at that age, I was like maybe 21 or whatever, 21, 27, why is all they want to meet that one person, plan out their life and die? Where's the adventure? Where's the surprise? What's going on? I didn't understand. Me personally, I had a lot of relationships, I guess. They were all romances that turned into relationships, and some of them, I guess, were meant to be romances, never become relationships, looking back. I thought they were relationships, but they were romances. I had a lot of romances with altogether beautiful people, amazing people. I don't regret a single one of them. But I felt like I was a bit guilty or ashamed, like every time I broke up or left, or, you know, it was like a year or two had passed and okay, that's it. It's over. I'm always like, oh yeah, let's be friends, you know. A part of like one or two cases maybe, like, yeah, cool. Let's just be friends. And they're like, no. Anyway, there was still this shame and this guilt that kind of just like clung to me, and I was like, oh, every time I was like, oh, I'm such a failure, you know, I broke up with them again, or I left again and I didn't give it a real shot meaning like buy a house and a car and plan a family. And it took me a long time to accept that about me, that it's just okay. You know, listen to your heart. The worst thing you can possibly do is stay with somebody and be in a relationship with somebody who you don't love, who you don't want to be in a relationship with. And if that's your situation and you have 5 children and a business with your partner, I know it's tough. but you can do it, you can get out of it, and it's going to be better for everyone, also the children. And yeah, as I started with my shamanic work, I started applying my shamanic perspective and my abilities and the roadmaps that I have to relationships. And I realized how relationships are the most magical, surprising, and potent mirror that we could possibly have for ourselves. Our relationships show us everything about us that we need to know in order to become who we're meant to be. Isn't that great? And once I realized that, I was able to also work with, you know, that those feelings of shame that I had, where it was like, oh yeah, I'm a failure for not, you know, being with the father with my child, for example, which is not really what I believe, but there's something there that tells me that's not right. So before we look at the shamanic perspective of relationships, let's look at the social perspective of relationships in our Western, I'm in Switzerland, but just, we'll call it the Western culture. So we have music, movies, TV shows, literature, probably games as well. I don't know. And then the relationships of our parents and grandparents. That's where our idea of love comes from. And if you do some research in your family, if you look at how are relationships lived between couples, between loved ones, lovers, you know, like, what's the lineage in your family? What's the lineage of romance? In my family, from what I know, traditional, you know, get married, have children, stay together forever. I know one of my grandmothers, she got pregnant before she was married, when my grandfather was her lover, and they climbed through the window into her bedroom and everything, and then they had to get married. Had to, whatever, I don't know, but that's the narrative that I've been told. And then our parents' generation, there's a bit more divorce. I'm not going to talk about my parents' relationship because this is going to be in the internet, and I want to respect their privacy, and I don't want to talk about their relationship at all. But in the generation of our parents, there is a big stigma around divorce, around, oh, not being married, having several fathers of your children, you know, like maybe you have 3 children with 3 men, maybe you're a man, you have 3 children with 3 women, maybe you divorced 4 times or 1 time. It's not, even though people do it and it's become normal, and I guess 50% of all parents are divorced in that generation, it's not something that is truly socially acceptable. And I'm not saying I'm an advocate for divorce, I'm just stating the facts. And then we look at movies, all the romance movies that you know. Enter on Netflix, romance. What is the basic narrative of all these movies? You take Titanic or The Notebook or whatever it might be. The narrative is always there's one person. There's one person, and that's your soulmate. And if somehow you can't figure it out, or there's people who want to get between you and they're successful, or there's a war and he dies, that's over. That's it. You might find love again, but it's never going to be the same. So there's one person. Literature, the same. And then when it gets really interesting is music. there's a general message in love songs that says, "You are my only sunshine." That's what it comes down to. Not all of them, but there is this really codependent core message in love songs, and that goes from blues up to now, 2023. And when you look at all the programming that is happening around us and where we come from, it's like, wait a minute. Why do we struggle with love so much? Why are there so many dilemmas in love? Why are there so many broken hearts, so many broken promises, so much disappointment, so much trauma, re-traumatization in romantic relationships? And the reason for that is because they point towards a huge wound that exists in our society, and that's that we lost the connection to the power of love, romantic love. And that goes all the way to sexuality, where in sexuality is the most potent, or like sexual not activities, but like the sexual encounter with somebody else is the most potent thing that you could possibly do in your entire life. It can lead to children, which already shows how potent it is. But it can be creative in every other way. Whatever you manifest in that moment where you're sexually intimate with somebody becomes bigger and stronger. Shamanically, it's the most creative act that we could perform. And I don't mean intercourse between a man and a woman. Sure, that's a part of it, but it can start with eye gazing. It can be eye gazing. It can be same genders. It can be whatever. But the sexual thing combined with the romance, the love, the attraction, whatever comes up, is the most potent thing that could possibly happen to you. But we have casual sex with people who we don't really care about. It's like, yeah, I wouldn't have a relationship with him, but yeah, we just fuck every now and then. Really? I mean, do you want to do something that is so potential with someone that you really don't care about, that you just found on a dating app? Probably not. I'm not saying you have to be in love and in a, couple constellation with that person. Not at all. But there has to be genuine attraction, genuine desire, genuine chemistry. Otherwise, you're just throwing gold into the river behind your house. So what happens? Why or where did we lose connection to all these highly, highly powerful things? A lot of things happened. Religion is definitely one of them. Religion has been disempowering people for a very, very long time, and sexuality is an area where you can really see it, because once you take the power away from people to be in their sexual flow, you take their innate power away. And that's how we've grown up. And it doesn't matter how sexually liberal you are, it's still the same. It's still a part of you. You've been born into this culture, into this world where we lost the connection to love, romance, and sex. So that's why I really love working with these topics. And when I do relationship work for my clients, my approach is always this is the right thing. This has meant to happen. If you fell in love with somebody and they treated you like shit, or they're not committing, or they left you, or you left them, or whatever, it's never, ever a mistake. So my approach is always, your relationship is meant to happen. And then I look at the difficulties, because usually there's difficulties when people come to me, and I see what would be the solution. What would my clients have to become in order for the problem to dissolve? Say somebody's very, very jealous, and they come to me and they say, yeah, you know, my lover or my boyfriend is out so much, and he hangs out with all these beautiful girls or men or whatever, and I'm really jealous. Then the question is, who would you have to become in order to be okay with that? And the question is, do you want to become that? Yes or no? Is that aligned to your true soul? Is that aligned to your real self, to your destiny? And maybe it's not. And then that means, okay, we're going to work with you not being afraid anymore that you're going to be left or left behind or cheated on if you speak your truth. Because in that case, you have to say, hey, this doesn't work with me, and if we can't find common ground, we have to end it, you know? That's one way. And then the other way is, maybe you feel like, hey, truly deep within, I want to be a person who's with somebody who's very social and a little flirty and hangs out with tons of people. I want to be that, but I'm not. And then we work with that. But either way, I check, where is your destiny? Where is your true calling? And then we find out why this person is putting you through this pain, because you chose the person and you chose the lesson. And on a shamanic journey that I do for that purpose, I usually, the first thing that I do for couples is that I check if there's a cord, because all relationships are based on soul contracts. So everybody that you meet, and especially your lovers, you have a soul contract with them. That means you agreed that you would meet in this life and learn certain things from each other. If you have a stalker, you can have a soul contract with that stalker. It sucks, I know, but there's something for you to be learned in that situation. And even if it's only a small thing like asking the right people for help, even if it's just that, and finding a new friend through that, or whatever it might be, but there is. And so what a lot of people do, because they just want to die together and they don't want to grow together and they don't want to risk maybe breaking up at some point or changing their relationship or transforming, they attach energetic cords to each other. They're like, ah, don't move until death does us part, and then that's it. Those energetic cords, they suck energy from each other, and instead of helping each other grow and letting it be like a dance where one leads and then maybe the other leads and then one lets themselves fall and the other one maybe stands up, you know, instead of the relationship being like that, it just becomes like a stagnant thing where both people are like this and they just have energetic cords attached to each other. Those energetic cords are really draining and they stop your growth. The way we break up these days, where it's like, oh, okay, I don't know, I'm gonna pick up my shit and I'm out of here. Those cords still stay, you know? And it's possible that you have cords to 10 ex-boyfriends and all these cords and then connected to a new one, and you wake up tired and you're like, what's going on? Well, it's the cords. And it's not your fault, it's not anybody's fault, because we don't know better. We simply don't know better. We've been taught by our family, our lineage, our culture, that we're meant to find the one. And once you find the one, you stick with them. That's it. And I'm not saying that can't happen. That is a beautiful thing, and it can happen. And but it has to happen naturally. It has to happen with somebody that supports your growth, and not with cords. So the first thing I do is I cut the cords between those people, and I see where they're connected. The cords are connected, and they always lead to the soul contract, and the soul contract leads into past lives, because most of the time the people that play a big role in our lives have already played big roles in our past lives. And there are some people who come again and they have the same role in each lifetime. There might be the archetype of the muse, and you find your muse over and over again. It's really like Cloud Atlas a little bit, if you've seen the movie. So I look at the soul contract and at the past life. Sometimes it's in the past life, you know, you experienced a certain kind of trauma with this person, and that's what binds you together. And you decided to meet again in this lifetime because you want to work with that trauma and you want to overcome it, and you're going to point each other towards this trauma so you can heal it in this lifetime. Sometimes it's a power dynamic. Sometimes it's really about just creation. Sometimes we fall in love with our biggest enemies from past lives. Sometimes that's important to turn around in this life. Sometimes we fall in love again and again and again with the same person in different ways, because they're our love over many, many lifetimes. Whichever it might be, I'm not going to tell you, oh, this is your love forever, or oh, this is actually your enemy, so break up. I'm not going to tell you things like that, because that's not where I'm looking. I don't want to look at your future, or who are you with when you die, or whatever. That's not my point. What I want to see is, what is your gift for you in that moment? And once you find the gift and you take it and you start working with it, you're going to be really surprised what happens, because then everything will shift. The other person will shift too. So in the example of the jealous person, whether my client would decide to confront them, or whether my client would decide to do the personal work in order to grow and be okay with the situation, both is going to have a gigantic impact on the partner who might not know anything about our session, but it's going to have an impact, and it's going to change things, and it's going to be the biggest chance for them that they could get to grow themselves. And that's how romance is meant to happen. So if you're in love with somebody, embrace it and know it's the right person. I don't know if you're going to die together. If that's what you want, you can create a wish and just begin the process. Be really honest with yourself. Be really true to your heart. Listen to your heart. Listen to your partner. Listen to their needs and compare them with yours. See how it feels. Don't listen to everybody else. Just leave it out, because they maybe haven't watched this video. Cut the cords to everyone. Every single person, unless you have a small child that is below 2 years old, cut the cords. And just commit to embracing life, embracing love, and embracing the potential that is in romance and in sexuality. And if you're interested to have me do a journey for you, or a session, if you feel like you have cords attached, If you have questions about courts, if you have questions about your love life, about love in general, if you have feelings of shame and guilt in regards to your relationships that you've lived, send me a message. Sometimes I can just give you a quick and easy answer. Sometimes I can tell you exactly what we can do in a session. Sometimes a big project comes out of it with somebody. So whatever it might be, let me know. I'm looking forward to hear from you.